Hello, my name is Valentine, and in this video I'll endeavor to help aspiring YouTube caption writers and translators with their task. I'll go over the basic mechanism of adding subtitles to YouTube videos and share some translating tips and general advice. While I'm not a big shot professional myself, I've been writing captions for a while now, and I'm only sharing the things that I wish I knew when I was starting out. This video is deceptively long, but it's mostly because I can speak English very quickly without tripping over my own tongue. YouTube captioning tools are not exactly robust. They are mostly there to be there, so there isn't much to wrap your head around really. However, if you're only interested in certain aspects of this process, the timetable is on the screen right now, and you can also use timestamps in the description. Learning the bare necessities will take you under 10 minutes. I hope you'll find some of this helpful. Now, onto the subject matter. Before I get to the nitty-gritty of stitching lines to the screen, I'd like to say a few things about why it is a worthwhile undertaking. If you're watching this video, chances are that you already have reasons of your own, but let's make sure you won't lose your steam. Thing is, captioning is not exactly exciting as you can imagine. It's monotonous, tedious, and quite frankly boring. Depending on the length of the video, the number of languages you're working with, and how scrupulous you are, it can take from several hours to several days of work. Some parts of it are so brain dead that you're practically clicking your day away on autopilot, while others are lengthy gauntlets of micro problem solving that demand focus. It's not a meditative activity, nor is it stimulating, so what's the catch? Well, first off, don't get me wrong, I didn't just say all this to deter you, quite the opposite. I simply want you to have realistic expectations of the task ahead, and not try to bite more than you can chew on your first go, and then feel burnt out or defeated. It may not be the most energizing activity in the world, but it's manageable, and it is purposeful. Let's see what it's good for. Yeah, absolutely. That's the spirit. Let's open with the obvious. Having accurate captions is one of very few ways deaf and hard of hearing people can access narrated content. It's not the biggest group, but they feel the most profound impact. People with good hearing often appreciate added clarity as well. For example, if they're still learning the language and require a safety net to fall back on, or have to watch videos in a noisy environment. Same if the video itself has less than perfect audio, say it was recorded outdoors or with suboptimal equipment. Captions make it much more comfortable to watch. Then there is translation. Providing this, you're making the video accessible to a brand new audience, sharing the good stuff around and increasing the author's exposure. And it's not only useful for others, you're getting a benefit too. If you're learning the language, translating captions can be a great supplement to your studying. It's exposure and practice, all in one. And since it's not an abstract academic exercise, but something meaningful to you with a tangible result, it sticks with you better. More than that, there is benefit even if it is your native language. Surprisingly enough, tedium of the task can be a boon as well. It trains perseverance and tempers your patience, which will help you in life.
Trust me.
Now, onto the meat and potatoes. In order to add captions or subtitles to the desired video, you need to press the cog icon here at the bottom right, then press the Subtitles CC option, then Add Subtitles CC. Note that not every channel has that option available. If it's not there, you can try to contact the author and ask them to enable community contributions. They may not even realize it's off. If all's fine, you'll be directed to your Creator Studio, where you can choose the language you wish to work with. This page also tells what captions are already published, and which are currently being worked on by other people. If you're planning to do some prep work first, then it's a good idea to stake your claim before sitting down with it. By that I mean making your first input, which will create a draft in your studio. Now other people should see that there is someone toiling away. So let's say the video is in English, and that's the language you want to work with. You click that option and this page opens in front of you. That's your workspace. On the left is the box where you insert and edit lines. You listen to a segment of the video through the preview screen, pause it, then type or paste the necessary amount of text in and press the plus button. The line goes to the list and also appears on a timeline below the previous screen. It pops to the left of the red marker.
What the hell?
To the left of the playhead. So be sure it's at the end of the sentence, not at the beginning. Then you stretch the line according to its delivery. Acoustic spikes shown on a timeline will help you determine where the phrase begins and where it ends. Thus you go sentence by sentence until the video is over. While you're doing this, one thing that requires your attention is acoustic captioning. It's probably called differently, but I'm lazy, so I didn't Google. Those are captions for instances where there is no narration, but sounds in the footage enhance, illustrate, or contextualize an idea. This is a service you'll be doing to deaf and hard of hearing people, and it can get tricky, as you need to decide which sounds are pertinent, which you can omit, and how you describe them. Your goal here is to paint a picture with words, so even if you would mute the video, you would still get what it was all about. You have to pay extra attention to things that happen off-screen or are used to confirm a statement. You have to second that with your description of sounds.
Even the character movement sounds will change depending on what kind of armor they're wearing.
If the video is aimed at entertainment, this is where you can express yourself and funny things up a bit. Good sense of measure will be a badge of distinction here. Your goal is not to incite hysterical laughter, but simply ensure that extra stuff you're adding doesn't dry out the tone of the video. In the same category is the music. There are a few ways you can go about it. If it has lyrics, you can put those on screen. If it's instrumental, you can try to describe what the music is supposed to evoke in the scene. The latter can prove challenging, so if you're struggling with a description, you can at least put the name of the song in the titles. People appreciate that. And of course, you can combine them at your discretion. Just avoid clutter in the screen. And while we're on the topic of extra captions on the screen, there's one basic mechanic not everyone may know how to use. You can add extra lines by holding Shift key and pressing Enter. That's useful when there has to be an acoustic caption and narration on the screen at the same time, or when there is a piece of text you need to translate in addition to narration. If you want the line to go up, put your cursor at the beginning of a sentence, and at the end if you want it to go down. Pressing Enter without Shift will split the line at your cursor, which is a quick and easy way of dealing with sentences that prove being too long. Put the playhead where you want the split to happen on the timeline, and
Cut them apart!
And if you want to join two lines together, just put the cursor at the beginning of the second one and press backspace.
To spread glorious convergence to the entire galaxy.
You people are unbelievable!
By the way, there is no point in trying to align text with cheeky use of spaces. It will show on the previous screen, but not in the video itself. All your cosmetic efforts will be erased. One more thing to be prepared for is that if acoustic captions and narration happen simultaneously, you will have to account for every combination of words and sounds. Don't get frustrated. It's all part of the work. Just master your patience, or take a break before engaging with such segments.
Get back to work!
The last sound-related thing is the name tagging. It's prudent to tag who says what, as it's not always evident from the footage and can become confusing, even if you're able to hear the voices. Now, no one can be expected to have played all the games, recognize all the references, and know all the author's guest appearances by name. You can ask them directly if it's something prominent, or you can save yourself some headache and simply refer to what you're grasping from the video itself. An NPC, old man, player, etc. This will help the viewer to stay on top of what's going on. Every change you make to your draft is saved automatically, so you don't have to worry about that. If you want to return to your draft after taking a break, you can repeat the initial steps.
Isaac, the steps. He wants me to follow the steps.
Or seek it out in your creative studio by going to your contributions and choosing Drafts tab. Right now, you have to go to classic mode to find your contributions, but it will surely be integrated into the new design at some point. Once you've finished inserting and aligning captions, you need to submit them. Keep in mind, it doesn't happen instantly. Wait until a window pops up with two options. If you're not confident that you've done a good enough job, or just couldn't finish it, the No option allows you to upload your work as an unfinished submission. It won't appear on the video, but the next person attempting to add captions will see it as a basis to work off of, instead of an empty draft. Once they filled the blanks, they will submit it themselves. And this time, let's see what a Yes option does. It sends the draft for the author's approval. If you've chosen that option, don't close the Creator Studio straight away. You have to wait for the confirmation that the submission has been uploaded, or it won't go through. Once the status here at the top left changes to submitted, you're free to go. Note that other people also have access to the submission at this time, and they can make adjustments to it until it's been published by the author. Once the author checked and approved it, the deed is done. The captions are now shown on the list, and your name should appear in the description when you click Show More. Although, by default, you're posting your captions anonymously. If you want to be credited, you need to tick the checkbox above the preview screen before submitting. Checkmark disappears if you have closed the draft at some point, so be mindful of that. And if you forgot to do it, you can always go to the list of your contributions and remedy that there. And that's the gist. Now, on to the translation. Mechanically, adding translated subtitles is no different from native captions. Difficulty here comes from the fact that translation doesn't always adhere to the structure or size of the original phrase, and it can be tricky trying to make it go smoothly with the narration. The solution here can perhaps sound scary and counterintuitive, but it's where we'll eventually arrive at as a translator anyway. Distancing from the original wording. Translation is not about retaining as much of the original phrase. It's about retaining as much of the message and flavor as your understanding of the source allows. Remember, adequate translation deciphers the language, but good translation deciphers the author. Here's the mental exercise you'll have to be doing to make translated text flow naturally. First, reading the original sentence in its entirety, regardless of how long and convoluted it is. If it is a turducken of a sentence, you can break it apart for yourself later, but first you have to map it out in your head. Then, comprehending its meaning and intent. Understanding intent is crucial. For example, if sarcasm is involved, you may end up having to write the exact opposite of what was said originally. Then figuring the elements that make it unique to that author. Then reflecting on the reaction it evokes in you. Then discarding its grammatical structure from your mind. And finally, creating a sentence in your native language that contains same meaning, follows same intent, and evokes the closest possible reaction in the reader by emulating the author's unique flair. It may sound complicated and daunting when explained like that, but before long, this becomes a natural way of looking at translation. And don't worry, not every sentence will be a challenge, especially for languages that work in similar ways, like English and Russian. Most of the time, you'll be able to come up with the best solution on the fly, as there won't be much to change anyway. The order of words may change, parts of the sentence may switch around, but it will be the same sentence overall. It's only when you really find yourself stumped that you have to remind yourself not to be a slave to the wording. The best example of this, I think, are jokes and puns. Sometimes a joke can be self-descriptive, and by simply relaying it word for word, you're already translating it perfectly. Other times, literal translation makes no sense, or, most often with puns, works off of similarities of certain words that may not be at all similar in your language. This is where you have to figure out what purpose it serves. Making fun of something, criticizing something, simply upping the mood. and then either try to replace it with appropriate alternative of your own making, or failing that, just omit the joke and say things plainly. You don't have to hit 10 for 10 every time. You can balance it out by phrasing something in a perkier way somewhere else and preserving the overall tone of the video in that manner. If you'll keep sitting there trying to squeeze something out of the original phrase, all that brain strain will go to waste. However, here's another thing. If you're struggling to remember a word or find the correct term, don't rush for the dictionary. Sit on it for a minute and really try to summon that solution. Chances are you have it in your head, or you wouldn't even realize there is a better option to find. Doing this loads this elusive vocabulary into your brain's RAM, so to speak, and you'll have easier access to it the next time you need it. You want as much vocabulary at your fingertips as you can get, to shave every possible bit of effort off your task. And speaking of shaving off, one more nuance you have to consider is that translated text usually bloats up a fair bit. And unlike with written text, the viewer only has limited amount of time to read the line, so you need to be on the lookout for things you could compact. Double negatives are an easy target, along with flavor constructions. If you see "he did not object against," you can shrink it to "he agreed." If you see "it surprised absolutely nobody," you can just say "unsurprisingly." This is where distancing from the original wording will help you out once more. It's much easier to express an idea succinctly when you're not trying to wrap your words around its whole skeleton. The only exception to this could be the title and description of the video, which you shouldn't forget to translate as well. You can do that by opening this tab. Since it's just text with no time limit, you can allow yourself some breathing room in how you word things. The last thing I'll say about translation is perhaps something you've already heard somewhere else. As far as translation is concerned, there is only one true mistake: getting the meaning wrong. Anything else that may be considered a flaw is not the end of the world. No one's perfect when they're starting out. Believe me. And you can't get better without practice. YouTube is a forgiving training ground. You won't be sabotaging cancer treatment research by not being at the top of your game day one, and you can always go back and polish up your earlier submissions with the knowledge you've gathered. So focus on getting the meaning right, and you'll be the perfect duck. If a particular sentence keeps you puzzled, you can try gleaning something from the sentences around it, the visuals, or the author's tone of voice. It doesn't necessarily have to be this very phrase, but overall tone throughout the video. Are they being serious or playful? Are they praising or being dismissive? If you'll get a picture of what they're driving at overall, you'll have an easier time figuring out what kind of phrasing fits the bill.
You're Brendan Fraser in The Mummy, or Kevin McAllister. Trick people.
As a final solution, you can directly ask them about what they wanted to convey. Remember, there are no silly questions. What is silly is a preventable mistake that still gets published for everyone to see. And as a personal request to my compatriots, don't be lazy. Use this letter. It often shows where the stress falls in a word, and sometimes in a sentence too. It's a part of our language. Don't discard it because of its unfortunate placement on a keyboard. Now I'll go over little tips and tricks you may find useful. For one, if you're looking for your first video to sub, choose a subject you're directly familiar with. This way, if you'll encounter a difficulty making out what the narrator said, you'll have a chance to reverse engineer it from your own knowledge of the matter. Getting stuck can feel very disempowering and discouraging, but don't let it defeat you. As for the length, I'd recommend something from 15 to 20 minutes bracket. This should be enough time for the initial excitement of a new experience to wear off, so you can decide for yourself whether it's something you can see yourself doing continuously. Even if you'll decide it's not your thing in the end, you'll be able to at least bring this one to completion and not feel like you failed. But let's say this sort of activity agrees with you and you want to stick around, then it's best to start off on the right foot. Usually, when you open your workspace for the first time, it already contains auto-generated captions, prompting you to correct those instead of writing your own from scratch. And I would wholeheartedly recommend to just scrap it straight away. Autogen is no help. It's a bog of unnecessary hassle and potential screw-ups. It's filled with inaccuracies, has no punctuation, and sentences are split and timed in a way that would force you to restitch the whole thing anyhow. No one wants to see the end of one sentence, a line of direct speech, and the beginning of the next one, all in a jumbled mess on the screen. That's no captions, that's ravings of a madman. Have mercy on your brain, and don't risk leaving something embarrassing in the titles. I've seen things. If you came to add translation, and there are no native captions published at the moment, you will see machine-generated timing filling the list for you. Same as before, discard it. It's garbage. Lastly, if there is a set of native captions published and you find timing up to snuff, you can save yourself some hassle by opening them, pressing edit, then actions, and choosing download from the drop-down menu. Now go to your own draft, click actions and choose upload this time. Find the SBV file you just nicked and upload it. Now you only need to replace text in the boxes with your translation. YouTube will initially complain that the language doesn't match, but you know what you're doing. This also remedies an issue that translators may encounter when there are existing native captions. YouTube offers them as a template for your translation. Theoretically, you're supposed to be able to opt out of that, but in reality it doesn't happen. And it's a problem, because it's restrictive. It doesn't allow you to add extra lines or split existing ones, which you'll inevitably require. Uploading an SBV file purges the template and unties your hands, while still leaving the cues for you to follow. It's best of both worlds. If the video is long and you need to take a break, the template will return upon reopening your draft. Re-uploading the old file won't do this time, as it will erase your progress. But worry not. Simply download your own draft and upload it back up. All is right with the world again. Repeat as necessary. Now, here's two pieces of advice I can give you regarding manual timing. 1. When stretching the line, don't make it begin and end precisely with delivery. Put the beginning of the line a couple millimeters ahead of where delivery starts. More would be excessive. This will make the line pop up a split second early. If the viewer was looking at the screen, it will be enough time for their sight to drop down and start reading along with the narration. If they were at the end of the previous line, it will give their sight enough time to dart back to the beginning. Without this, you can start feeling ill at ease, like you're falling behind and the text is going past too quickly. At the end of the phrase, you can stretch the line a full 1.5 centimeters further, unless, of course, it encroaches on the space of another sentence, or the visuals change to something else, which makes old text seem odd. It's not always possible, but it helps to further alleviate the feeling of being rushed. This feeling is also affected by how fast the narrator speaks, but that's not something you can change. 2. Do not leave small gaps between sentences. Subtitles have a backdrop, and if you leave those little spaces, it creates this flickering effect that can be heavy on the eyes. Reading subtitles is already more strenuous than just watching the video, so you want to alleviate as much discomfort from the viewer as you can. Glue those lines together, unless there is a big pause, change of visuals, or some special circumstances. As a reminder, use the end of the line for extra slack, not the beginning. It's fine if the line stays on the screen a bit longer, but it throws you off if it appears way ahead of delivery. Now let's look at the options you have with adding and editing text. When your work is just beginning, things can go a few ways, depending on what's available to you. If the author of the video writes and publishes their scripts, it would be a good idea to use that as a base for your captions. It would eliminate possible inaccuracies and save you from guessing whether you heard this or that correctly. Plus, it helps determining how much text you can put in one line at a glance. If the script is formatted to Times New Roman font size 14, in most cases 2 lines in a document would equate to 2 lines on the screen. The video screen, not the preview screen. On the preview screen, the text is made bigger so you could see it better, and the formula changes to, if it fits in 3 lines on the preview screen, it will be 2 lines in the video. There are exceptions, but those are rare.
60% of the time, it works every time.
In my opinion, 2 lines or shorter is the reasonable standard for captions, unless there is extra information that has to be displayed. 3 lines take too much screen space, and in regards to how little is too little, it's probably up to everyone's own judgment. Personally, I advocate putting more text whenever it fleshes out one big idea. People usually read faster than they speak, so it allows the viewer to gain some headway and look at the screen while the narrator finishes their delivery. If text is split into very small pieces that change quickly, once again, it just feels like you're being rushed and don't have a moment to look at the video itself. Also, when splitting sentences, try not to mix whole ones with split ones. Whole sentences are ready to be digested in one bite, while split sentences require you to hold focus. Mixing them together scrambles the flow. As for the splitting itself, make sure you do it sensibly and not just at some arbitrary midway point. You should be guided by the sentence construction, not by the timing here. Aside from the size of the line, you should also consider the dramatism of delivery. For example, if it is a joke, you don't want to insert the punchline with the rest of it. You want to hold it off, so it would have intended impact.
Remember when I said the sound was pretty subpar to average? The vampire shotgun changed me. As a person.
Same goes for the rest. Keep your ears perked for intentional pauses, build-ups, and especially switching of subjects. Just because two shorties sit comfortably on a line doesn't necessarily mean they belong together. But back on track. Some YouTubers make access to their scripts a Patreon feature. But writing captions is a service, so realistically they should be invested in helping you out here. If nothing else, you're taking a tedious task off their hands. So, if you're not their Patreon backer, don't be afraid to contact them and request access to pertinent script for that purpose. Now, what if no such script exists? You still have a couple options. The first is to simply go ahead and start adding lines as you hear them.
Forget reality. Surrender to your darkest dreams.
This may sound like a quickest and most convenient way, but it has its pitfalls. Working like that, you can't help but have a sort of tunnel vision, since you're focusing on one point of a video at a time. In translation, this results in missing context, wrong pronouns, and general stiffness, while during captioning it sometimes leads to incorrectly split sentences. You can remedy those issues by watching the video thoroughly after you've done adding text, but at that point you'd likely be exhausted and tempted to be done with the task ASAP. So don't rush it, and have some rest before giving your submission final QA. The last option is the one I choose, but I can see how it may look unappealing to most people. I'm talking about transcribing video into a text file as part of prep work.
What a weirdo.
I'm doing this because I'm writing both English captions and translation, so it goes towards both tasks. And I would recommend that to anyone who plans making double submissions. Translating a text file will always be a better option than going sentence by sentence, since it gives you the overview of the whole piece. And this way, it doesn't feel like you're working through a keyhole. And while you're transcribing the video, you're already processing it and memorizing its structure, which results in even higher fidelity of translation. Additionally, it's likely you'll encounter a few spots where you couldn't hear the narrator clearly, or are unsure what they're getting at. Transcribing the video allows you to pick those out thoroughly, so you can clarify them with the author. Again, they should be invested in helping you do the best work you can. Just be respectful of their time and compile your inquiries when you're done transcribing, instead of making them one by one. Here's what I see as a reasonable template for this. First of all, supply your every question with a timestamp, either at the beginning or in place of the portion you couldn't hear properly. I doubt content creators remember their stuff by heart, so that's an obvious one. Then, if you have a likely guess, you can include that in parentheses, so it will become a simple yes/no question. And lastly, it's often prudent to specify what exactly are you seeking to gain clarity on. It's most useful during translation, but it helps to avoid needless back and forth with captioning as well. Also, while it may be tempting to cut a corner and just check auto-generated captions in hopes that they'll nudge you in the right direction, that is essentially no different from guessing. It has equal chances of helping you and leading you astray. If you're not certain you understand something, you shouldn't be guessing or assuming. Just ask the one who knows for sure. On the other hand, you'll be doing so much minute decision making that you simply won't be able to keep track of every tiny detail. Little slip-ups will happen, and you should accept it as an inevitability rather than a failing on your part. Otherwise, it will erode your will to continue.
Screw you guys, I'm going home.
Mechanically, there are probably a few ways you can transcribe a video, depending on what programs or devices you have on hand. Since I'm a peasant, I simply do it in a text document, using a VLC player as my playback device. Listen to the playback for a few moments, memorize a piece of a sentence, stop playback, put it down, rinse and repeat. Probably good for your memory and comprehension of how English language works, since you're deconstructing and reconstructing sentences in your head all the time. One tip I can give for transcription is that you divide the text into modestly sized chunks. You can do that with pre-existing scripts as well. This way, when the time comes to translate or sync it to the video, you won't feel intimidated by the scope of work and can easily break away from it at any moment. This is helpful when you don't have a dedicated time of day for sitting down with this, or simply prefer to switch activities regularly. It also comes useful when you're not feeling too well, or if the material you're working with is mentally exhausting for you. Process one bit at a time, and your progress will mount. It sounds like a lot of extra work, and it is. So if you're pressed for time, or simply don't feel up to it, skipping this won't be a sin. But in that case, be sure you're giving your submission a thorough look-through with a fresh eye before sending it in. Another good idea would be giving yourself a day or two to rest. And then, after your titles go up, re-watching the video in full screen, while having your submission opened in a separate tab and correcting things that catch your eye.
No. No! I'm done with that.
This way, you'll be sure all displays correctly, and can make final adjustments. You may even change color and opacity of your subtitle backdrop to make typo hunting easier. Now, depending on your personality, one of the biggest things to brace against could be feedback scarcity. You're not creating fresh content, but refining existing one, so there isn't much anticipation for that. Plus, YouTube has no notification pop-up for when subtitles are being added, and your name gets hidden away in the description. People may not even realize that captions they're looking at are not made by the author of the video. YouTube itself may glitch out and not display your name for no reason. Then it may randomly reappear one day. That is unless the author makes adjustments to your captions. Then YouTube strikes you from existence and locks up the submission. This is something you have to be prepared for. Writing quality captions takes a lot of time and scrupulous work.
All day, every day.
And if you can't pull that kind of effort in vacuum, you will have to create a support structure for yourself, since it's unlikely that it will appear on its own. Ask your family or friends to check out your work, incite discussion. If you're learning the language, share it with your classmates, or approach your teacher and let them know you're doing this for practice and would appreciate feedback. While gathering glory shouldn't be your priority, and this is a very wrong line of work for that anyway, it's only natural to want recognition. Make your needs known. Motivation is as important as dedication, especially if you're looking to pursue this seriously. Not every video will be its own reward, and you won't be able to always pick only the juiciest morsels. Okay, this is a lot to take in, so let's repeat the main takeaways. In captioning, don't cut corners. Machine had its chance, it blew it.
Everything's bland. It's bland. Bland as fuck.
Describing sounds is as important as relaying words. You can skip the prep work, but not the QA. In translation, don't fixate on specific words. Ideas can be approached from a multitude of angles. Translated text usually bloats up. Prepare for that. Know when to rephrase entirely and when to simply drop particulars. Hone your sense of measure. Don't go overboard and don't be a stiff. Generally. Starting out, strive for quality, not for excellence. There's a world of difference between good enough and just good enough. so cut yourself some slack. And don't back out simply because you need help with like 3% of the work. 3 main pillars of your growth and improvement are exposure, practice, and feedback. Read other people's submissions, put the time into making your own, and poke friends for a look-see. Treat your task with patience and respect. It is work. More importantly, it is your work, and you should always hold yourself to a respectable standard. Well, that is it for the video. If you're a beginner and you've stuck around this long, I hope you now have more confidence in your eventual triumph, not less. And if you're already a practiced captionista, I hope I've managed to make your life at least a little bit easier. But I've only relayed my own way of doing things, based on my own reasoning, so if you think I've missed something or know something I don't, please share your insights in the comments below. I'll pin an info board of sorts and compile them there. Improving without checking your peers is probably impossible. However, I haven't talked about how to turn this into an employment, since I don't think my case is a blueprint for anything. I don't want to give you bad advice that will lead you nowhere. I can only say that it took a few tries, some time and some gratuitous work for me to get my foot in the door, so to speak. So I think a period of not knowing whether it's even going anywhere is to be expected. But this world is a bountiful place, so I wish you good luck out there. Try out your mettle and see what opportunities present themselves. Even if it won't be your job, it still is a worthy hobby to have that generates benefits for everyone. I can think of 2 main things that would put people off writing captions: tedium and lack of confidence. I urge you to challenge both of those. Dare doing things you haven't done before and put yourself on the map. The world needs more people who are willing to do a chore so that someone else could share a good time with them. Give it a shot. Obviously, a big special thanks goes to Lord Mandalore for supplying me with the lion's share of illustrative materials, helping me refine the script, giving advice, and making that guide video, without which I wouldn't have attempted this project to begin with. That's not the full list, but this video is long enough without me gushing for another 2 minutes. You've been a huge bro throughout this whole time, and undoubtedly helped me find myself as a caption writer. I hope you're seeing a return on your investment. Alright.
My face is tired.
So no more talking. Cheers.
Everybody listen up. Get back to work!